Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. We're going to get started. If you were here for the earlier one, I am changing the dishes a little bit, but we're going to utilize the same product. So we're primarily going to focus on the cream soup base mix, and I'm going to show you a few ways to do that. Most of these are one-pot dishes designed to build all in one pot, utilize our product to help save you on labor, especially in today's world. I'm going to get this started because it does take an extra minute, so you'll hear me kind of talking while these are cooking. With this first dish, we're going to do a chicken mushroom marsala. I'm sorry, a veal mushroom marsala. I did veal instead of chicken. So we're going to start the pan, get it hot, add a little bit of oil. We'll get the bottom of the pan coated. We're going to use some, is that me? We're going to add a little bit of garlic, shallots. We're going to get those started. Then we're going to get our fresh mushrooms in. I chose sliced baby bellas. You can use whatever mushrooms you're looking to use. That's the fun part of this. This is only going to be about 5 ingredients outside of the cream soup base mix. So you get to choose which ingredients you want to use and put in there. And that's the important part. We talked a little bit earlier about labor being tough right now. And so to separate yourself, we want to make sure that you're not cutting back on quality ingredients to go to for your labor purposes. So we figured we'd help you with the labor side, cut back a little bit on the labor, and help you with better and quality ingredients. So we get our mushrooms in. We're going to let those start just a little bit. And these are a little bit large, so I'm going to break them up as I'm cooking them. But once they soften up with the marsala, you'll see they break up. I'm going to have my group is getting ready to bring some samples over. I know most people are listening to me from the show floor and looking at the TV, so hopefully I look good on TV. But if for some reason you're not here in the middle and you want to try a sample, we're in booth 125, right over here. I don't know what direction, but it's to stage left. All right, we got these mushrooms started. Now I'm going to add our marsala wine. And we're going to let that cook down. I'm probably cheating this a little bit. These mushrooms aren't quite, they were a little bit thicker, so they're not quite there, but the samples you'll get to taste, the mushrooms are going to be cooked down a little bit more. And so then we're going to add a little bit of cracked black pepper. And so the dishes that I'm showing you, I chose them for a reason. We're doing the mushroom marsala to show you that you can cook things ahead of time and then build up utilizing the cream soup base mix. Here in a second, we're going to do a cheese sauce, and I'm going to show you that we're going to start with the cream soup base mix first and then start adding ingredients there. So this is designed to be a one-pot dish. Now that we got our marsala cooked down, we're going to add the water. And compared to the competitive products on the market, the biggest thing I want to let you know when you're utilizing the major products, and this is true with all of our powdered bases, we want you to add it to hot water, not boiling water. We also don't like you to add it to cold tap water. So the idea is that we want it to be nice and warm. The starches work best at that point. So that's why I added the water, let it go for a second before I started mixing in. Then we're going to add our cream soup base mix. And we want to get this completely mixed in before it comes to a boil. Then once it starts coming to a boil, it'll thicken up and it'll be ready to go. And the veal, I'm not showing the veal, but all I did with the veal, it was veal scallopinis that I just breaded in a flour and light black peppercorn. and then sauteed those. And then they covered it with the sauce as they were serving it. All right, so we got that nice and mixed in. Again, looking at this, I probably went a little light on the pepper, so the other advantage of this product is you can do it to taste and add or look. So I'm gonna add a little more black pepper. And then I used this earlier on the chicken pot pie, but you can also utilize it here. So I did a little bit of thyme. So we're gonna add just a little bit of thyme right into this. We're gonna let that thicken up. And again, this is a way to replace it. If you were an Italian restaurant and you were making your own marsala and you were like, hey, there's no way I'm gonna modify this, you're right, you're gonna build in the saute pan up. You're gonna do your veal, you're gonna saute that up. Then you're gonna add the spices, you're gonna have some mushrooms there. You're gonna get things and you're gonna build from the pan up. That requires a lot of talent and a lot of ingredients. So the idea here is that we make this ahead of time so that we can have this ready to go. Now all you have to do is teach your staff that you can sear the veal, add the sauce, send it on its way. So that's the idea behind this. If you see it's starting to thicken a little bit on the edges, boil a little bit on the edges and starting to get a little bit thick. So I'm gonna let that go another second, but we're gonna jump over here and we're gonna start because we got 3 dishes to show you today. And again, if you were not here earlier today, the one you missed was the chicken pot pie. So I replaced it with this. So we did a pot pie filling, very simple, five ingredients and we made pot pie. That is available to taste over at Major booth at 125, Major Products. All right. So for the cheese sauce, we're gonna start, again, I told you that one we cooked in the pan and then we built the cream sauce. This one we're gonna start with the cream sauce. So we're gonna get the water in here. It's gonna take 30 seconds. We're gonna let that get hot. Before that boils, I'm gonna add my cream soup base mix. See if we can be ambidextrous on this. There we go. Again, we get this mixed in really well before the water gets too hot and starts boiling. If you add our cream soup base and our gravies into boiling water, you may see lumps, and that's because our starches are not designed to boil. Some of our competitors do use that, but that's where we can provide you a little more of the creaminess, is utilizing that hot water and letting the starches thicken due to boil. So same, here we got the cream soup base in, so now we're gonna turn this into a cheese sauce. And I kinda told you earlier as we were doing this about the difference on the competitive products. What you'll find on the competitive product is it gets really thick as soon as the water gets hot. They're using an instant starch. We are using a traditional starch. And the idea behind this is the way cream soup bases are designed to be used is you start it and then you add ingredients, or you may have stuff going in there. But in the competitive products, right about now, this would already be too thick, and we're about to add cheese to it. So we need time for that to thicken up. So here's the secret ingredient. Anytime you're using cheese or milk, I add just a little bit of nutmeg to help give it just a little bit more creaminess to it. So we're gonna put the nutmeg in there. And then I also did a little extra water in this. Traditionally, 1 bag gets mixed with 1 gallon of water. If you're doing your own cheese sauce and you're using shredded cheese, a lot of times those have cornstarches on them, so it thickens it up. So you may want to go up to 4.5 or 5 quarts on this instead of 1 gallon. So then we start adding our cheese while this is hot, and it'll mix in before it gets thick. Oh. Of course it had to spill on the TV side, huh? You can see it's starting to thicken a little bit there. The cheese is nice and melted in. There we go. So what I told the group earlier, and I left one thing out. So the cream soup base mix, what it was initially designed for was to replace your cream of mushroom, cream of chicken, cream of all of those canned products. This is a powdered version of that. What we've learned as chefs is we also, they'd also do a lot of cream soup bases, potato soup, broccoli cheddar, those type of things. And this is a great starter for that. As chefs, we've learned that we do a lot more than what we did in the past when these products were originally created. So now we use this in more sauces. We use it in a little bit of everything. So this is a replacement for your bechamel sauce, your flour, butter, milk. Anything that you're looking to replace on that, that's what you're going to utilize this for. The benefit to this is ours is gluten-free. So we're utilizing food starches instead of flour. So you can make a few more sauces out of this gluten-free. And so if you see, we got some nice consistency there. That's about to boil. I'm going to switch over to this one. And we're going to do our Hollandaise. And we're going to turn it into a bearnaise, actually. So we got our last dish here. And so to turn it into a bearnaise, we're going to get our pot hot started. And the two key ingredients we're going to add before we make the Hollandaise mix is we're going to start with so if you see our cheese sauce is getting nice and thick here. So we're going to start with white wine vinegar. And this lid doesn't want to come off. So we're going to get that in the bottom of the pan. And we're going to add a little bit of dried tarragon to that. These are really good lids. So we do our dried tarragon. That's going to take just a minute to simmer down. And what's going to happen is our tarragon is going to turn into more like a fresh herb. All right. So there's our cheese sauce. If you can see, it's nice and thick. Hopefully you guys tasted that with the pasta. But cream soup base. It's a great item to work with and very universal that you can change it every day of the week, make different ingredients out of it. All right. So on our bearnaise Hollandaise, what we're going to do is we're going to get that down to, we're not going to let this dry on the bottom of the pan. We want to get those, we want to turn that vinegar basically into a syrup. So we're going to let it go until there's just a little bit of bubble there. You see there's no real liquid, but there's a syrup on the bottom. And then we're going to add our butter. And we're going to melt our butter. And the reason we do the vinegar and the tarragon in the pan ahead of time is you can see as this butter is melting, it really mixes in well with the butter. So you get a little more flavor. Some people do like to do this tarragon and vinegar separate and then add it to their Hollandaise. You can do that. I think you lose a lot of the flavor in the bottom of the pan. All right. Okay, and then when our butter is nice and boiling like this, we're going to shut the heat off. On the directions, some people tell us our Hollandaise mix, they're like, your Hollandaise mix directions are so hard. It tells you to melt the butter, pull it off the heat, add all the ingredients, all that stuff, and then cool it. All we want you to do is turn the heat off so you can either, if your heat's running, you can pull it off or you turn the heat off. When it's no longer creating bubbles like that, that's when we're going to add our powder. If you add the powder while the butter is boiling or too hot, this will turn in more to like a paste glue type, and it doesn't want to take the milk. So that's the reason we do this is that way you can get all these chunks broken down at about 150 degrees as opposed to the 200 when everything's boiling. So then once that's done, we take our cold milk, And this one, I left my milk upstairs. So Almond Breeze was nice enough to give me some almond milk. So we're actually making this with almond milk. It'll work just fine. It doesn't have to be whole milk or traditional milk, whichever milk you prefer. Now that the milk's in, now we're gonna turn the heat back on. So if you look, while I was standing here talking, I was able to melt the butter, add the powder and the milk, and you don't walk away. So when you're reading the directions, it's not as difficult as what you're perceiving it to be when you're doing the directions. So we mix that up. We're gonna bring this back to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, it'll be ready to go. Did they already hand out the steak and bearnaise? So one thing I do want to point out, and I didn't point this out this morning either, but the steak, the seasoning on the steak, we used the beef base. So it was rubbed on the beef base. So instead of seasoning it with salt, pepper, garlic, any of that, I just put the beef base right on it, and then cooked while it was raw, and then cooked the steak. That way we got a little bit extra beef flavor going into our steak. So hopefully the steak was seasoned well also, and then we had a little bit of bearnaise right over the top. And the secret to this, the reason we show you this, our motto is the chef's base. So we do this. All of these bases are for you to change the flavor, to modify how you want. Do what you're looking to do. We give you the starter. So even though we put the directions on there, we don't want you to necessarily follow the directions. We want you to create your own dishes at every restaurant. And so we're just giving you that base starter. So that's why I didn't talk measurements. We can certainly give you some starter recipes to help you out if you need some of that, but really all of our dishes, all of ours are designed to be creative, just to give you some consistency, save a little bit on labor, and help you build your own dishes with quality ingredients. So if you see this is getting ready to come to a boil, it's gonna be thick. We don't want this to boil hard. On our bearnaise and Hollandaise, you don't want it to have a hard boil, you just want it to thicken up. We are also, our Hollandaise or bearnaise, when you mix it up, if for some reason you do start to see a little bit of separation, so we're getting a little bit of boiling here, we're gonna turn this off. If you see a little bit of separation, ours is one of the few that if you cool it down and you get it back down below 160, 165, 140 is the perfect temperature, just as long as we're satisfying the health department. But if it starts getting up into the 170, 180s, you might see some oil on top. Pull it out of the steam table, pull it out of the heat, let that cool down to about 140, mix it up really well, and it'll come back together, and you can hold it. So as long as you're holding it in that 140 to 150, it'll hold up very well. So we don't want to bring it to boil. And that's the bearnaise out of the Hollandaise. If you want to take Hollandaise instead of the tarragon and the vinegar, you would mix this up following the directions, and then now you would add your cayenne, your Worcestershire, Tabasco, whatever you're looking to do to turn this into a Hollandaise. So enjoy. If there's any questions we can answer or anything we can help you with, we're over at 125. All right, thanks.